Welcome back, guys.
Yeah,
How
good
is
to see ya.
everyone?
Yeah, good.
Very good, mate.
Good.
It's terrible weather out there today. It's good weather for our topic of the day.
Yes. Cold water immersion.
Yeah.
Talk about today. A few little bits and pieces we can discuss. And
How are you, Mick?
Going well, guys. Going well. Looking forward to having a chilly chat today.
Yeah, talking chilly. I did my cold water immersion today, and looking toward this topic, I've always been meaning to implement cold water immersion into my health and well-being protocol, but because I've got a pool at home, and I've always thought, right, it's winter, I'm going to start the plunge, and because I fear the cold and my body does not react well to the cold, I have just delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And I thought, no, I just can't do it. I cannot get into a cold thing. Anyway, when we said one of our topics is going to be cold water immersion about a week ago, I thought, right, I've got to do this before I can talk about it.
so you've only recently started this?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And I can tell you, I love it. I've done it for the last week, and I've done it every second day. I just thought I'll just start off every second day. I won't do it every day. The first time I did it, surprisingly, it wasn't as bad. So it's in the middle of winter. My pool at the back, I reckon, is probably around 15 degrees in the morning.
That's Celsius, right? For
Celsius,
yep.
yep.
I think you'd be surprised at how cold it is.
Yeah.
I think it'd be colder than that.
You reckon?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look on my my solar heating thingy, which isn't operational at the moment, but it actually wasn't too bad. I got in.
Well, maybe, yeah. Carry on.
And I really made an effort to utilise that Wim Hof breathing technique when I was in there so that I wasn't,
Yep.
which normally happens when I confront cold water. But it was really, really good. And I'm really excited and looking forward to talking about it because having just scratched the surface on researching it and employing it into my protocol, I love it. There's so many benefits to it.
Yeah, it's great fun. Like once you get over that initial mindset of like I'm going to get into this really cold water, man, you feel so good when you get out. You feel amazing.
That's the best part is
Yeah.
the getting out part.
Yeah. Worst part is getting in.
Yeah.
The best part is having
just
a warm
after you get
shower.
out. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's a rush.
Yeah.
Oh man, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the colder it is, the bigger the rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The benefits are crazy, aren't they? You got increased metabolism. There's a mindset thing. There's performance-based stuff that is a benefit for. It's great.
Get a release of dopamine.
Yeah.
Get a release of adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Yep.
Knock down your inflammation.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I think you just talked about mindset then getting in. I think mindset and resilience is a big one.
Huge.
It's a resilience through stress, isn't it? You are creating an environment that is stressful for your body, and then you're developing tools and techniques to get over those hurdles, so to speak. It's very cold when I get in.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm going to breathe. I'm going to relax into it. I'm going to, enjoy it as best I can.
Mm-hmm.
And you're spot on, mate. That's a process called hormesis that I checked up on, and it's basically exposing your body to a low dose, short duration stressor, like cold therapy, which then triggers cellular and sort of genetic adaptations in your body to help protect you for future larger stresses.
Yeah.
So you're actually training your body and changing your genetic makeup in a way to adapt to stress more effectively.
Yes. And interestingly, deliberately stressing the body, you're building up tolerance, obviously, but if it's a stressor that your body is knowing about going into, so you are, you talk about that going into it. I'm really, really concerned about going into the cold water. Your adrenaline, noradrenaline already goes up,
Yep.
as opposed to a stress that comes on quickly and you don't really know about it. It's sort of different. And the physiological effects of that, of knowing the stress and not knowing the stress are two different ones as well.
And that's where that resilience comes into it, isn't it? Is that mindset of like, I'm going to get into this icy cold water.
Yep.
Mick, with your triathlete training, was cold water immersion any part of that, or have you had any other experiences with it?
Yeah, I started I didn't really call it cold water immersion at the time. I just called it ice bathing. And so when I'd come in from a long run on a Thursday night and then again on a Sunday, normally the wifey would grab a couple of bags, 2 or 3 bags of ice for me, and have the cold bath ready so I could jump straight in just up to my waist. And at that time I was just utilising ice bathing, I guess, as a way of reducing inflammation and preparing the body for the next session the next day.
Yep.
And then I guess we actually when and we've spoken about this before, but when my wife got ill, we were exploring a plethora of sort of holistic healing modalities. One of the ones we stumbled across was this cold water immersion, and a guy that I think is sort of universally renowned in that space is Wim Hof. And I actually fired Wim Hof a personal message at that time, and he actually responded to me.
Oh, wow.
So I just reached out, I explained our situation, her age, all of that sort of thing. And he actually went backwards and forwards interacting with me over a couple of days. And then he gave me the direct contact of basically one of his most highly trained practitioners. And he said, look, I'm just way too busy to be able to connect with this, how you're going to need. This guy's really good. And so he put me onto him, and he was based in Canada at the time. And this guy had done some really incredible things in cold water, and also one of our other topics, fasting, which you guys did when I was unavailable at the start. He actually did a 300-day fast. So this guy had done some amazing things. And so we actually implemented in cold water immersion into her treatment, and it's something I've continued on myself. And the protocol that we used and I've sort of continued on with was we tried to do a minute a degree. So if the water was 15 or 16 degrees, we would aim to do 15 or 16 minutes and then work our way down. And then what was it? I think I was doing it up until about 6 to 8 weeks ago with an ice bath that we've got access to, and I managed to get down to sort of 6 minutes at 6 degrees. And it was bloody freezing. It was, you know, I remember when I would start out a protocol or a process, even 15, 16 degrees was cold, and you were in there and really having to focus. But working our way down, it's amazing to note the considerable difference in a degree in water once you get down to those sort of really low temperatures. It's full on. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of bits and pieces there we could unpack of, you know, what you were just talking about there, Mickey. I guess I don't know. Starting off, so cold water immersion, cold showers, etc. You know, full body immersion up to the neck. I suppose some people go under their head, and you know the protocols might be a certain amount of time. Certain degrees, we can kind of discuss those. I guess touching initially on what you were talking about there, Mick, I guess for most people, you know, they're aware of ice baths or cold water therapy from sports performance. So initially we're talking about sort of reducing inflammation. You know, we've talked about inflammation in the past. I just wanted to touch on that part of it because I guess that's where ice baths originated, I suppose, was, you know, a performance-based thing. You'd play footy or whatever it is, and you'd see them, maybe you used to see them sitting in the green wheelie bins of ice. So interestingly, you know, it is quite good for inflammation, but it's not great for all different sports or different exercises. So after training sort of hit kind of stuff, Mickey Mack, you're talking about Thursday night run and coming in and having a session. Yeah, it's great for, next day muscle power, decreasing soreness, recovery after 24 hours for those hit type activities. But it's also not ideal if you're going for hypertrophy. So you're training in the gym, you're working out hard, you want to build some muscle, build some strength. Ice baths probably between sort of 1 to 4 hours afterwards are not beneficial for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they are sort of, they have been previously used for, the reduction of inflammation.
Yeah.
And I think it was more of like a CNS, central nervous system reset. In the end, what they found was, it helped those athletes recover from some really hard physical activity, mental activity during a game, rather than, reducing the inflammation and the soreness. You could almost go into icing an injury these days, which is, kind of maybe on the way out.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely started to reduce that sort of inflammation of soreness. But
So,
it's gone beyond that, and it's gone to sort of Wim Hof kind of stuff. It's gone to, immunity, metabolism, and those kinds of things. So, yeah, it's a really interesting, wide-ranging topic.
yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, CJ, with regards to like performance and hypertrophy and the timing of the ice baths and stuff like that. I read some studies recently, and it seems to be a lot of people now in the fitness and the wellness world are actually recommending that if you want to get really good benefits, if you're a lifter and so you want to get hypertrophy and you want to get strength gains, like you said, the problem is if you have an ice bath after a workout, then you're actually going to knock off that inflammatory response that you want from going to the gym and breaking muscle fibers and things like that. So what they're saying is the best thing to do is to have your ice bath before you work out, and you'll actually get a big hit of noradrenaline and adrenaline, and you'll also probably get a slight boost in your testosterone. That's then going to translate into a better gym session, and then you also get to have that inflammatory sort of hormetic response to the exercise afterwards. Whereas I think if you do have the ice baths after a session, it is going to be good, like you say, for that more sort of like knocking down inflammation. Maybe it's good for AFL players because they got that really stringent sort of season of footy, and they're trying to just manage niggles and things like that and recover quicker so they can do their next game. They're not in that sort of building like preseason phase. But it's really interesting. Like the timing seems to have a hell of a lot to do with it. You don't want to go straight from the gym or you run or you ride or whatever and go straight into cold because you're going to lose those benefits of the exercise. So
well, that's what you're working out for, isn't it? You want that hormetic stress.
Yeah, exactly like Ruth said.
You want to work out, and then you want that flood of adaptogenic hormones, testosterone, human growth hormone to come in, recover your body, get bigger, get better for the next time you work out. And if you are blunting that effect by ice bathing, is probably not ideal.
It's like we did inflammation a couple of weeks back, and we talk about inflammation's the devil and we want to reduce inflammation, but we need inflammation sometimes as well because it's that trigger to grow and it's that trigger to repair. So again, it's that delicate balance of trying to have everything in moderation and get a certain amount of hormesis without overtraining or over. I mean, you can even over cold bath. You don't want to be doing cold exposure to a chronic level because it's actually going to lose its beneficial effects and it's going to start to become
well, I've got down here sort of frequency and how cold. What time of the day do you want to do it? Is it best in the morning? Is it best late in the afternoon? Is it
Well, I sort of read that doing it in the morning is a better time to do it compared to at night, because at night it may trigger like amping sort of. It's a stimulant. It
is
like a fight or flight sort of thing.
So it can affect your sleep pattern, blah blah blah, or your ability to relax prior to bedtime. So morning is probably a better time to do it, and obviously pre-exercise, not post.
It increases your blood flow and increases your body temperature. You wouldn't think that being in the ice bath would do that, but your body's response is to increase body temperature. And as you're going to sleep, you don't want your body temperature increasing. You want it to be coming down.
That's right.
So
yeah.
if you're doing that sort of late or in the day or late at night, it's going to be difficult to get to sleep. And those hormones you're talking about coming in, yep, you're more alert. Adrenaline, noradrenaline come in.
And like you touched on there with blood flow, you're getting that effect of increasing nitric oxide, which is going to relax all our arteries, which is going to increase our blood flow. And that's exactly what you want going into a workout. You want to have your pipes flowing, you want to have good blood flow.
Yep.
So,
and the body releases a chemical or hormone called norepinephrine, which is also a neurotransmitter.
Yep.
So having that enhanced neurotransmission is going to help you in your workouts.
Yep.
When you've got greater stimulus with your neurons firing and all that nervous system really kicking in, as you mentioned before, Jonesy, the CNS enhancement after the immersion.
Yeah.
and you feel it when you get out, don't you? Like for our Australian listeners, so norepinephrine is noradrenaline,
same.
American Australian language, but I think you feel that cognitive kick when you get out of the cold water, don't you? You feel crisp and you feel alert, and it's not like you get out feeling drowsy, or if you feel drowsy when you get out, you've been in way too long. But
I go in my pool as well, and my kids will
You
know
feel
when I'm in
amped.
there because I get in there, woo!
yeah,
And then you get out and you're pumped. And,
you feel on top of the
you're
world.
tingling, your body's
Yeah.
red.
Go bright pink.
Yeah.
Your skin can actually sting after a little while, but it's a different feel. It's not a bad sting.
Yeah.
And then when you get out, you've sort of got this numbness, and it's also recommended that you don't artificially warm yourself up. So once you've immersed yourself and you've got out, then I walk around my backyard naked, and it's the middle of winter.
Yep.
What a sight.
It's not much of a sight because you'd need to surgically retrieve my penis. It's inverted itself, but I try to allow my body to naturally warm itself up again, and that's a great feeling. And I've never really actually tried that before, but you can feel it happen, and you get out and you're not cold.
No.
It's the middle of winter, and I'm
it's
not
funny,
cold.
isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Is that the beige or brown fat doing its thing?
Well,
The
man,
mitochondrially dense fat tissue that you have stored on your body?
I went
your sort of
right
shoulders
deep
and
into this,
neck?
and just bear with me for a moment while I try to get my head around it and explain it in a way that is easy for common folk like me to understand, right? But what I read was that cold water immersion increases levels of a protein called PGC1, and that's found in skeletal muscles. Now, that protein is responsible for two things: mitochondrial biogenesis, so producing mitochondria. And for those that have done human bio in high school, mitochondria are the little Nutrigrain-shaped things in your cells that are
Powerhouse
responsible
of the
for
cell, yeah.
energy or creation of energy. And also, number two, regulating genes involved in energy metabolism. So this little protein creating more mitochondria in your cells, which is an adaptation of exercise.
Yeah.
So basically, by cold water immersion, you are producing more mitochondria in your cells, similar to when you exercise, and do the same thing. It's an adaptation. It's associated with greater aerobic capacity and lowers risk of diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and type 2 diabetes. So that's the benefit of the mitochondrial biogenesis. But that mitochondrial development occurs in your fat cells, yeah? And it occurs in the brown fat. And so for those that didn't, this was a term that I wasn't quite aware of. Brown fat is sort of like a good fat, as opposed to the yellowy subcutaneous fat or
White fat, they
White
call
fat.
it.
white
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
Yep.
The blubbery kind of fat that you are associated
Yeah.
with.
And
being
it's called
overweight.
brown fat or beige fat because of the density of the mitochondria in it. And so the mitochondria make it that color. But by producing the mitochondria, this is the catch. So non-shivering thermogenesis. So our body creates heat by two ways: by shivering, muscle contraction, which is caused by glycolysis, like the burning of glucose and production of ATP and that sort of thing. So
Making new glucose, yeah.
yeah, it's not as efficient. It's effective, but not really efficient. A more efficient way is non-shivering thermogenesis. And I'll try to explain this. And here is where mitochondria switch to producing heat by this neuroephedrine.
Norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine.
Or noradrenaline.
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 Let's go with that.
So
Yeah, we're from
mitochondria-
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mitochondria produce heat using this instead of energy. So it's actually creating heat within the cell. So
Creating its own heat.
yes,
Yeah.
creating its own heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your brown fat uses your energy stores or your ATP stores to make heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
But then the amazing thing is that the brown fat can then result in your yellow fat becoming brown.
yes.
So
Converts, yeah.
it converts that yellow fat into brown fat by producing more mitochondria. So it needs more fat, I guess, to house that mitochondrial density. So therefore, it's going to have a benefit in reducing your yellow fat, which in turn has so many other more beneficial effects on our health. So can it help with obesity? Can it help?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Reduces white fat.
And fat around certain organs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or liver fat and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So that I found that really, really interesting. That brown fat concept and the development of mitochondria to produce heat within our body without the shivering concept.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where we're going back to our body warming itself up after we've got out of that cold environment.
Yeah.
Yep.
CJ, can I steal your thunder here and talk about a study?
Oh yeah. I've got a study, but go on.
I got a
yeah.
quick little.
Hey,
just-
mate, before you go, is it
I'm
Japanese?
here for Japanese.
Jeez, you know, I don't think it is. I don't.
Well, is it worth anything then?
Well, it must be Scandinavian then, surely, because they're all over this
Yeah,
cold
they
water
love it.
immersion.
Yeah.
I think it did come from Scandinavia,
All right,
but
sorry.
it was done back in the 80s, and it was this scientist, and he exposed rats to cold water for 4 hours a day, which is a long time, right? 4 hours a day of exposure to
When you're that small.
quite
yep.
cold water. Yeah, when you're that small. But these rats, as a result of this, were able to eat twice the amount of calories as the other rats. And this is going back to your point of weight loss, be leaner and live 15% longer.
Wow.
Wow.
This is not with exercise or any other, obviously not caloric restriction because they're eating double. This is just cold water immersion. And then they're obviously using their fat stores, to convert energy
Yeah, right.
for thermogenesis.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if you're an overweight person and you'd like to try and lose some weight and you really hate the idea of exercise, maybe at least consider doing some cold water immersion.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll hit you with a study.
Right on.
I was just right.
Let's all do some studies.
Not quite sure where it was
It's a
from.
dueling study off.
All right.
But healthy young men in a prolonged cold immersion experiment they measured their energy expenditure and it was up by 15%. Just their natural energy oxidative process. But it was also shown that was most detectable with those with the most detectable brown fat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so having that higher brown fat increased their energy consumption by 15%. A third of that 15%, so is that 5%? I wasn't very good at maths at school.
Yeah, let's go with that.
15.
Yeah.
So a third of that 15% increase in energy expenditure was due to oxidation of plasma-derived glucose. So
Great.
that shows that cold exposure causes glucose uptake simulated in brown fat. So I think I just repeated basically what we just said, but that was a study that found that the glucose uptake was derived from the fatty tissue.
And so
you go.
if you sort of read into that one step further, if you're using plasma glucose, then you're going to lower your baseline glucose level, which is going to be
Yeah, right.
amazing for your health, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
That's what they say increases longevity, isn't it? It's keeping down your the level of glucose in your blood.
Yep.
A lot of benefits.
A lot of benefits. Come on, CJ, have you got a study?
I've got a study.
Come on.
Do you know what? I looked at 2 studies, and one of them was a meta-analysis of 52 studies.
Oh,
Wow.
I knew
You
you'd
give me a
best us for a study.
I
This
don't know
is
if it's
from Professor Okumura from
Yeah.
the
Actually, I didn't write down the name, but this one was 2021, called Altered Brown Fat Thermoregulation in Winter Swimming Men.
Mm.
And pretty much from the summary, they used an 11-minute threshold. So we can talk about duration and how long you need to stay in there and what some of the studies say on that. But the summary sort of found an increase in brown fat thermogenesis, which we've just discussed, increase in body temperature, which leads to an increase in metabolism, which leads to decrease in weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of happens acutely, almost immediately. And some of the other stuff that I've read was talked about, like if you are concerned about going in there and you're thinking about it even before you get in the water, you're getting that adrenaline rush, and it's already working on your body before you get in the water.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, the changes in the fat, so we talked about that one. It changes your white fat to brown fat, and you get an increase in brown fat. So that was sort of a study that really just backed up your two studies.
It's a good old-fashioned study off.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Mick? Have you got a study?
Mate, I didn't go and grab a study.
Wow.
However, I've been using myself as a bit of a study because
N equals 1. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
because I've got
Bit of self-hacking.
I've got my the sort of that ultra marathon in 6 weeks' time. So I've been ramping up the training a little bit.
Is that new? I didn't
know you were training for that, mate.
With that, mate.
Oh, I probably kept it a bit under the radar. I only started. I wrote myself a program from 2 weeks ago, and so I've got 8 weeks. It's a bit of a run over the ranges here, sort of in early September.
Haven't seen much on Strava, mate. We were recording it, because if you don't record it, it never happened.
Recording it in a diary, keeping it under the radar, keeping it under the radar.
Sneaky.
But so I've keeping in mind all of the things we've been talking about, and I guess mitigating those risks in terms of my long run on Sunday was 22 Ks. Making sure that I'm getting home, and I have implemented back in the ice bathing, and I had to. So that was on Saturday. Sorry, my long run. Came home, ice bathed, and I had another run to do on Sunday, and I was thinking. I was just wondering on Saturday night. I was feeling probably a little bit sore than I have been, and I thought, I wonder how I'm going to pull up tomorrow. And I woke up on Sunday, guys, and I felt fantastic. Considering the range of running and what I've sort of had to adapt to over the fortnight, the cold water therapy definitely did help. And I was able to go out last night and execute a relatively solid interval running session. So I chose for this week to put my interval run the day after my long run, which isn't something that I would normally do from a structure perspective, but I just really, really find that certainly for me, the physiological impacts in terms of that reduction in inflammation and everything is definitive. It's working for me.
Yeah, nice. So, well, one of the questions I've got, and we kind of discussed it there, you talked about it a little bit earlier, Mick. You sort of 15 degrees, you do 15 minutes and sort of go down from there. What kind of temperatures are we talking? And are we talking sort of, how cold do you go, or is it just how cold you can tolerate? And sort of, we talked about mindset before. It might be, if you've never done it before, it might be that you set yourself a goal. I'm going to do 1 minute at 14 degrees and then get out, and then the next day I'll do a little bit longer. But, I know, Smithy, your setup is a natural spring in your backyard.
Smitty, explain it. It sounds like paradise.
Beautiful. But how cold do we go? And is it just coldness that you can tolerate, and then you build up, or Yeah. How cold?
Yeah, I mean, our little stream gets into single digits, but probably not much colder than 6 or 7 degrees.
That's cold.
But it's cold enough that when I get in, it stings. My skin sort of feels almost like it's burning a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get like a bit of an intense ache, usually in my forearms, and then I go numb.
Yeah.
And after that, it's quite nice. The only problem with my little setup is it's running water, so there's no warmth bubble to get around you by staying still. So
I did want to talk about that one.
You can't sort of just hover like in a static body of water where you can get that little bit of almost like a wetsuit type effect.
It's crazy,
of
that
warm
phenomenon
water around
yeah.
you. But with that flowing water, I can only do the longest I've done is about 7 minutes, probably at about 6 or 7 degrees.
Yeah, it's pretty good going. Yeah. But I guess, sorry to interrupt you there, but everyone's sort of cold tolerance is different. And I guess you're going to build up cold tolerance, aren't you? So, you know, initially it might be that we call it the thermal layer, I guess, around your body. You can use that sort of to your advantage initially. If you've never done it before, it might be that, okay, I'm going to do 1 minute at X degrees and I'm not going to move. So if you get in there and you don't move, what your body does is it heats up the little layer of water around your body like you were talking about there and almost produces this little thermal blanket around you to keep you, your body is doing that. It's warming up. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And you kind of get in there and you go, oh, okay, I'm not moving. This is actually quite bearable. And then if you move your arms and you go, oh, geez, that's cold. You know,
and play around with that.
Yes.
Yeah, so enjoy that thermal blanket.
Yeah.
And then create movement. And
Yes.
and you'll find and just hit your body with another little stressor, another little cold hit.
Yeah. So I guess that would be one of my tips is use that thermal layer to your advantage initially.
Yeah.
While you're just sort of getting into it. You know, it is a trained thing, you know. You can kind of get up to 6 or 7 minutes in 6 or 7 degrees cold.
Yeah, Smitty just doesn't have that that convenience.
That's
with
right.
the running water. Yeah.
Well, he's a veteran. He's a cold water immersion veteran.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So just kind of if you're just starting out, that would be a good one to do. Is just sit still.
Yep.
Use that thermal layer. Go for a minute. Maybe move around a little bit. Get a little bit of that cold again, and then hop out, and then maybe do a little bit more next time.
Yep.
I guess there's probably no set. You don't say, okay, we're going to do 14 degrees. That's cold enough. And, you know, it might be that at 14 degrees you can go for a little bit longer, but at 12 degrees or 10 degrees, you're going to have to get out a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So
build yourself up.
Build up some cold tolerance. So I think when people ask me, you know, what temperature are you doing? I was like, well, it varies, depends on how cold my pool is, and then that'll depend on how long I stay in. But I aim for a minimum of 3 minutes. That's not much, but that study that I was talking about, they used an 11-minute threshold over the week. So it might have been 2 or 3 sessions. It might have been 4 sessions. It might have been sort of 1.
So sorry, CJ, is that a total of 11 minutes?
A total of 11 minutes over the week.
Right.
Over, you know, it might be 2 or 3 different sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, the temperature, I guess, matters, but it doesn't matter to a certain degree. You're going to be in there for a little bit longer if it's colder, if it's warmer, if it's colder, you know.
Yeah.
But I think you probably want full body immersion up to the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's actually good to go under. You
I
get
reckon.
that, what do they call it? The mammalian gag reflex? Gag reflex? Yeah, where you talked about it before, Roo. You take that big breath, and you can train yourself to resist that, or, you know, you get more tolerant to not having your breath taken away by that really cold water.
Yes.
I actually initially used it for surfing. You know, you go in those cold, really cold winter's days and it takes your breath away. Yep. Having said that, the ocean is actually, once you've done cold water in your pool in the middle of winter and you go in the ocean, this is
and that's one thing that I'm
bath.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm trying to progress to as well, mate, is to help my surfing because I find that 20 minutes to half an hour in the surf, my body sort of seizes up a little bit and I'm not as comfortable in the water and you know, it affects my body's ability to function.
So it sounds like your cold tolerance might be a little bit different to, say, mine or Smithy's or Mickey's, you know? You're a bit more of a wuss.
Yeah. and I also, I've had to research this. I also suffer what's called Raynaud's syndrome.
Raynaud's.
Yeah.
So basically from my my very last knuckle, or even
What
sometimes.
an intriguing that is.
Yeah, sometimes
yeah.
to the extreme is my very middle knuckle of my fingers.
Wow.
Beyond that will just go permanently white.
Yeah.
And it's numb, so I could actually bite it with my teeth, and I won't feel it.
Wow.
And I'm sitting in the surf, and I can tell when I've been exposed long enough.
Yeah.
My fingers turn white, and it will often take me to get home in a hot shower, and I'll put my hands down to my side so that blood rushes down them, and the full-on tingle feeling of all this
Sting.
blood rushing back. And so Raynaud's syndrome is basically the small capillaries of your body shut down. They close in extreme.
Is that due to the cold?
Yeah, extreme cold.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that by this cold water therapy, I might be able to overcome my body's reaction to the cold and get that. I mean, this morning I did my pool plunge, and it took me a long time to get rid of that whiteness in my fingertips. It took a long time for the circulation to get back.
Is that painful, Roo?
It's just uncomfortable, mate. It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. What about when you're perfused? Does that hurt? Like after
a little bit. Yes.
Does it? Yeah.
Yes, it does hurt a little bit when the blood starts pumping back into those capillaries.
I wonder if you get a big enough hit of nitric oxide when you hit really cold water. I wonder if that would have an effect on that at all.
How would I get that hit? How do I do that?
By getting exposure to very cold water.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like a biphasic effect where if you go cold enough, like really cold, I wonder if that could overcome it if you really got flushed with.
Well, that's an interesting point, mate, because since I've been doing the cold water immersion, when I'm in the water, my skin doesn't go white.
Yeah.
But it's when I get out of the water that my fingertips go white.
Ah, yeah, because like you were saying, when you get in really cold water, you tend to turn pink.
Yep.
It's like if you sit in water up to your neck, you look quite funny. You come out and your face might look sort of like quite pale, and the rest of your body is quite pink. And it's obviously because your body has flushed a lot of blood to the surface to try and warm you, I guess, until you get hypothermic, then you would contract. But I wonder if you could overcome that with really cold water.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, and I'll let you know if that changes.
Yeah.
But, I'm hoping that I might be able to overcome that condition.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's quite a common one, that one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
And I don't carry a lot of body fat, so I sort of think that might also be a effect of my impact from the cold.
Yeah.
I guess the really good thing about the cold exposure is that you can train for it in the sense that you will grow more brown fat. You will physically change more of your white fat into beige fat and then brown fat.
Yeah,
so
good point.
it's one of those ones, if you do expose long enough, you'll end up having more brown fat, which will be able to generate more heat.
Yeah.
So when you circle that back to your surfing, the more you expose yourself to cold, the more brown fat you'll get, and the more you should be able to operate in the surf for longer and feel comfortable. So
yeah. Interesting experiment.
Yeah. So what about sort of full body immersion as opposed to showers, like a really cold shower? I like to use a hot cold shower, so as cold as you can manage, and in the middle of winter it's cold.
Damn cold.
And then go for a hot, really hot, as hot as you can handle.
Yeah.
Sort of that contrasting, sort of shunting blood around the body.
Yep.
It's quite good.
Yeah, there's that protocol you probably do it, the 20 and 10. So you do 20 seconds of cold.
Yep.
10 seconds of hot, and you do that, I think it's 10 times through.
Yeah. I tend to go for a real long, cold stretch and then heat up and then just sort of take it from there.
Yeah.
But I didn't find any studies on, there wasn't too many studies on cold showers as opposed to full body immersion. So I don't really know there would be some benefit because, you cold, I get out of the cold shower and have the same effect. I come out and I'm pink.
Yep.
Often, you kind of looks like I've just had a hot shower, but it's been cold.
So is that 2010 thing a different protocol as opposed to not going into hot water, like letting your body naturally warm up? Is that a different sort of protocol, is it?
Well,
like
yeah.
Hot, cold, hot, cold,
well,
hot, cold.
that's sort of a contrast therapy that,
right.
Is probably, we could probably talk about heat therapy as another episode and then bring them both together, because I know a lot of people, Rogan for one of them, is you use a sauna and you go from hot to cold.
Yep.
I guess could be more of a detox thing where you're sort of flushing out some toxins and then, you know, you're going from hot to cold, you're moving your blood around your body. You know, it's going, you know, internal to keep your organs warm, then external
having
to cool
a
yourself
massive
down
impact on your circulatory system.
Yeah.
It's almost like having your two hormetic stresses, like your heat and your cold, all in one. So maybe they have a effect.
I think we could find some studies on that. I think people would have done a lot of studies. I don't think, there hasn't really been too much done on cold stuff, but I remember listening to Huberman, and he was saying there's sort of 3 of the best things you can do for cold therapy. You know, obviously the best would be protocol 1A, best thing would be to have, you know, full body immersion, moving around in the cold water. You know, if you can't get to that, you can't find a cold body of water, showers would be the next best thing, as in, you know, cooling yourself down. Obviously you're not fully immersed, but you're cold enough if you're in there long enough. And then the third one would be being exposed to the elements, the cold elements out in, if it's raining and wet and cold outside, that's also quite good, but not as good as the other ones. So it's kind of interesting.
I guess that's the cold therapy that our ancestral man would have exposed himself to.
Most definitely.
The cold weather and the wet and the rain and being out with limited clothing on or shelter.
And I guess knowing in the summer that winter was coming, ancestrally would have bulked up, eaten as much fruit as you can, whatever meat was available, you know, store some white fat, and then hopefully during winter convert that white fat to brown fat.
He also didn't have a hot water system, so he was bathing every day in cold water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did they bathe or did they just stink?
Developed a must.
Yeah. Would have been interesting in lovemaking, wouldn't it? You know, like haven't bathed for a few months and haven't brushed your teeth back in the day.
The old stick. Yeah.
Be a real romantic session, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I guess we touched on how cold it should be. I guess that's cold tolerance, you know, as much as you can handle.
So I think just retouching on that point, just from what I've read, if it's not as cold, you just need to go for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then, like Jonesy said, try to start moving in that cold. So my next progression will be, obviously my pool's not going to change drastically in its temperature, but I want to start swimming in that cold water, like breaking up that thermogenic layer and then just swimming passively in that cold water. That's my goal. I guess a really, really important thing is the breathing. And Mick, this is one of your things that you talked about on our President of the World episode about the importance of breathing. And you can't emphasize enough how that applies to this cold water immersion, because the cold will take an unpracticed person's breath away. Like it's just, and you find yourself like gasping for that breath. But and Wim Hof says this. He says, you know, when you are immersing yourself in these conditions, then trust that your body can actually handle it. Don't panic, because I actually did feel a little bit of panic at some moments there when I thought, "Fuck, this is so fucking cold. I shouldn't be doing this." But then I remembered what he said, and I thought, well, my body can adapt to this, and I need to let it adapt. Just trust your body to do it. But definitely incorporate the breathing. And there's a great app, and I just made a note of it because it's on YouTube, and it's Wim Hof's guided Wim Hof method breathing, and it has like a counting thing on it, and he talks over it with self speak.
Breathe in, breathe out.
That's right.
Doesn't he suggest not doing it in the water though?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
because really? There's shallow water blackout,
there's a
and
risk
you can.
Oh, really?
It's almost a little bit dangerous.
Oh,
yeah. So he does it in the shower.
Yeah.
I think he practices in the shower because on that app, I've used that app before. I don't have it at the moment, but
it's not an app, mate. It's just on YouTube. But he actually says
he does have
find yourself a comfortable position, either laying down or sitting.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll just jump in the pool.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to consider not doing that.
Yeah.
But are you doing the breath hold, Roo?
What's that, mate?
The breath hold in the water.
I think the issue with the shallow water blackout would come about from implementing the breath hold at the end of that. If you were just doing the breathing, if you're just utilizing the breathing as a way of controlling your central nervous system while you're in the cold water, I don't know that it's as problematic.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I guess it's just having the control of your breathing.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's really nice to get out of the cold water and then do that Wim Hof breathing.
Yep.
Do it just without warming up. So don't put a towel on yourself. Just stay out in the elements, especially if it's a bit breezy and it's a bit cold. And then you get that extra cold exposure, but the breathing does tend to sort of naturally just warm you a little bit.
Yep.
I reckon it's really nice. So you feel quite euphoric at the end of it. And
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are elements of danger to it, right? There's, cold shock. There is, especially in big bodies of water like a pool, sometimes things shut down and you can't move your limbs. I mean, that's never happened. I've heard of it happening, and people have feared that they won't be able to get out of their pool.
Yep.
I actually even think Rogan talked about it on one of his.
I'm not too sure. Yeah.
He was saying he was a little bit concerned because he, couldn't use his arms and legs to get out of the cold.
Yeah,
He'd been in there for too long. So there is that cold shock. Obviously we're not advocating for staying in there forever. You want to listen to your body, and if it's sort of
most definitely
you want it obviously to be cold and uncomfortable, and you're thinking I don't like this. I'd like to get out, but if if you're feeling like you can't move your limbs and things like that, that's probably a good time to get out. Yeah, and so, bit of things to think about, I guess.
That's right, yeah. And also the risk of hypothermia.
Yes, yeah.
You can get to such a point that you can get in trouble with hypothermia if you're going long and aggressive and you're by yourself and you don't have a means to warm up.
Yeah.
It can be a drama. So,
and I guess a warning would be anyone who's considering this and they've got previous heart conditions or something like that might want to consult their medical professional.
Yes, we're not doctors.
No, we're not doctors, but this is just something that we're trialing, and it's some of us have been doing it for a lot longer than others.
It's working for our protocols, definitely.
But there's also, we talked about the physical benefits of it, like possibly weight control and that sort of thing with the change of white fat to brown fat. But there's also those psychological or emotional benefits to it, and that hormone, the noradrenaline, that we spoke of earlier, is responsible in our brain for things like attention and mood, vigilance, focus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I find that when I've got out of the pool, I do have this extra sensory alertness and just this overwhelming feeling of a good feeling, like a
euphoria.
Euphoria, like what is it, the dopamine effect?
Yeah, you do get a dopamine hit.
Yeah. It's this awesome emotional feeling.
Yeah.
And I think also you will sort of switch on a bit of parasympathetic when you get out as well, and you do the breathing and you're really activating that diaphragm. So you're going to feel quite blissful and quite chilled out.
Yeah.
You're sort of going to have the hangover of those sort of excitatory hormones and transmitters, but then you're also going to do your breathing and sort of get that meditative, like calming effect as well. So you feel amazing. It's hard to explain. It's it's really shocking, and then it's really awesome once you're done.
People think you're crazy.
I do, yeah. Well, aren't we conditioned to feel, you're too weak, you can't go out in the cold, you'll catch a death of cold, put a jumper on.
How did that myth come about?
What a load of
if
shit.
you go out in the cold, you are going to get a cold.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, Wim Hof talks about, is that our body, our skin is an organ, and it's become desensitized through clothing. So our skin should be feeling all these feelings of the stingingness of cold, but it's become so neutralized at the feeling of our skin because of the clothing that we wear on a day-to-day basis. And I guess that's just, we've got to wear clothes, otherwise you get arrested. But our skin has become desensitized, and these sort of little treatments or little practices can help bring that sensitivity back to an organ that's probably a little bit neglected.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, we kind of talked about how cold it should be. We talked about sort of showers or cold water immersion, which is better. I guess if your body's transferring heat, it's either one is quite good, whatever you can sort of tolerate. Timing for the day, we talked about, when was best to do it. Probably in the morning.
I'd say morning.
Because I think it increases alertness.
Yeah.
Like you say, you feel euphoric, you're up and about.
Yep.
Adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, those sort of catecholamine type
Yeah.
hormones. So we did touch on inflammation and how that helps inflammation. It helps mental performance, increased metabolism, sort of increases mindset. So I guess maybe touching on, as we're sort of coming up to sort of an hour or so talking about it, maybe we should run through sort of a couple of protocols, or, Smithy, what do? You sort of, do you just kind of sit there and
Yeah, I mean,
breathe it out?
because I've got the running water, I don't really need to move because I've constantly got fresh water running over me, so there is no warmth blanket.
Do you aim for a time frame, or you go, I'm going to go, because I know that's what I do. I'm going to, and maybe it's good and bad, because so I aim for that sort of 3 to 5 minutes, and once I've hit 3 minutes, I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah.
And almost always I'll get out at 3 minutes.
Yep.
And maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe I should be pushing a little bit harder to go, now I'm at that level of tolerance. Maybe I should go a little bit further.
Yeah.
But it's a mental game for me. It's very cold. Of those 3 minutes, I kind of walk up and down my pool, and I go, most of the time I'm thinking, can I wait to get out of here? So I hit 3 minutes and then I get out. So my protocol is, I don't know, maybe not ideal in sort of building up more tolerance, but I'd just be interesting to hear, especially Rooster, you're sort of just starting out, Mickey and Smithy, you've done it for a little while. Interesting to see what you guys do and how you aim to get there. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy if I can get past the pain period.
Yeah,
because it's a real deep ache. Like,
Yes.
I find it quite uncomfortable. That real
deep
ache.
burn.
It's a deep burn. It's a deep ache. It feels like someone is making your bones ache.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't have heaps of meat on me,
Yeah.
so I don't have a lot of padding. But I'm happy if I get to that numb phase, which is actually quite pleasant. But if I really start to shake uncontrollably, that's the time to get out. I don't really want to get into that full sort of hypothermic state where it's too much.
So you're listening to your body.
I'm listening to my body.
going
So
for a
like
time.
some days I might only be in just until the aching stops. Might be 2-3 minutes sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can do 7. I feel like I could do another 7, and I sort of think like, oh,
Maybe I
it's
shouldn't,
been enough.
yeah.
I'm sort of usually keeping my eye on the time, but I'm not. I don't have a stopwatch or a timer, and I don't really have a specific goal.
Yeah. I guess sort of your body's temperature also has a circadian rhythm, and it sort of changes throughout the day. Obviously, when you're about to wake up, 2 hours before you wake up, that's when your body's the coldest, and that sort of helps the cycle of the day.
Yep.
So I guess you can't really pinpoint a time.
No.
Because your body's different. You might feel in the morning, I feel like doing 7 minutes, and in the afternoon, I only feel like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So I guess it's hard to put a time frame. Listening to your body is probably a good thing.
I think so. I think there's definitely people out there that would have a very regimented protocol. But I think it's also important not to start to really dread it and make it really hard for yourself all the time. Like, you do want to take a bit of enjoyment out of it. So if I've done 6 or 7 minutes, I'm really happy with that.
The enjoyment is getting out.
The enjoyment's getting out. I really look forward to my Wim Hof breathing, because you get I get a really euphoric state after I do a couple of rounds of that. You do the breath holds at the end, and you get quite long breath holds, and you feel quite good. And then I usually enjoy a walk down without a shirt on, because I've sort of got to walk back to my house
you got a
about
bit of,
sort of, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how quick I go. But I'm always careful not to really make it a chore that I dread by really trying to push to the maximum all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's soft, maybe that's a resilience thing, but
what's hard, isn't it?
I like to keep it as an enjoyable thing. I still dread getting in, and that when you first get in, but once you're in, you feel really proud of yourself. And I reckon some days you only get a couple of minutes. Be happy.
Yeah, yeah. And for a man starting out, Roo, what do you do?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think there'd probably be people listening that would maybe have thought about it, a little bit scared of the cold, maybe, and going, okay, well,
definitely.
Rooster can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Anxiety is an issue, not an issue, but I feel anxious before it. Even last night, I was thinking about it, about my plunge in the morning. I think what Smitty said about listening to your body is vital. I'll set my timer for 3 minutes, and that's only just to let me know that 3 minutes has expired. If I want to get out before that 3 minutes has, I will. But I'll also, once that 3 minutes is hit, I'll feel it an accomplishment. And so I also want to just stay a little bit longer as well over that.
Yeah.
and I will, and I know exactly what you're saying, Smitty. If I feel my body start to shake in the water, I'll get out. I think listening to your body is vital, but I definitely think give it a go. Really enjoy the after part of the immersion. So get out.
You got to enjoy the good times.
Yeah, walk
Yes.
around naked or with the undies on or whatever, and just allow your body.
Get that perineum in the sun.
Yeah, allow your body to just come back to its natural temperature or whatever, and just give it a go. It is quite nerve wracking, and I approach it. I have the same feeling sometimes as like a hard workout. So if I've got a hard workout coming up, I feel a little bit of anxiety, but once I've got into it, I'm really glad that I did, and that's how I feel with this. Yeah.
Roo, do you jump in the pool or lower yourself in?
No, I stride in with purpose.
Yep.
I don't.
Bit like a man striding into the surf.
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah. I don't go up to knee level and then go the dug bag level or anything like that. I just walk straight down the steps into my pool.
Just prolongs the pain, doesn't it? If you gin around and you're not getting in quickly and you're waiting, it's better just to, like you say, I'm the same. I just plop in there as quick as I can.
And because I've got the timer going, I don't want to cut into my 3 minutes by piss farting around and being indecisive. I'll set my timer to 3 minutes and 10. So I've got 10 seconds to get into the pool and slide into it straight away, and I know that I've definitely hit 3 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely well worth going. Nick, what do you reckon? Have you got any sort of tips that you follow?
I tend to be, and it's funny just listening how different we all are. But I tend to be a bit more regimented when I'm doing the immersions, and I do set myself a bit of a time goal. And I think that's probably more a survival mechanism for me as well. Is if I've got something to focus on outside of the temperature, and I guess a destination, if you like, in terms of time, then I can really just focus on that within the breathing. But that's also probably something to do with my personality as well. I think it's I tend to operate or function around that sort of goal orientation, in many areas of my life. I think the one other thing I really want to mention here, guys, because we've covered a lot of the benefits, but just in terms of people who may have some immune system issues, maybe autoimmune disease, things like that, there is a lot of research building in this cold immersion space in relation to the immune system. We've covered off a lot of the positives, and I think this is arguably one of the biggest is in terms of this cold water immersion really strengthening the immune system, and the mechanisms behind that, regulating the automatic nervous system, and the role that it can play in investigation is certainly heading into disease reversal and all sorts of things. It can be a very, very positively utilised process. So if there are people out there who are struggling with their immune systems, maybe it's just that they feel they're getting sick more regularly than they were, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe they have a more advanced issue. Again, we're not doctors, we're only speaking from our own experience, but there is building research indicating that this real link with strengthening of the immune system and cold water immersion. So it could be something that people implement in. We spoke about different things a couple of weeks ago that we would suggest. I think this is definitely one that people could incorporate in. Again, like you guys have indicated, be guided by your body in terms of time and how you feel and all that sort of thing. Use your own, your intrinsic intuition, but have a crack. It could really do you some, do your immune system some good.
And it's a great point, mate, that with regards to treatment, because studies have shown that a decrease or a low amount of that noradrenaline or the norepinephrine in the brain can lead to decreased attention, poor mood, and depression. So, from a mental health perspective, imagine the benefits that this could work, could allow those people with those sort of mental health issues. That the cold water immersion could help in those instances as well as a therapy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be big in the next few years.
Yeah.
I think even from just trying to find some studies, there's not a lot on it, and I think it'll be looked at in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, and we'll find out that this has amazing benefits.
Yeah, I think Wim Hof's done a really good job of bringing it into the mainstream and really sort of popularising it amongst the health and wellness crowd.
But isn't it interesting that there aren't a lot of studies on it, but humans have been doing it for centuries.
Yeah.
It's been a practice that has been applied since, very, very early days, hundreds of thousands of years ago.
And even ancestral man, it probably wasn't something that they thought about of the health benefit. It was just, like Mickey said, they've got to wash in the freezing cold water because that's all they had.
Yeah, or fish.
Survival.
Fish, yeah.
I guess, not to be too cynical, but there's not much money in it for clinical studies, is there?
Yeah,
like if you're a large pharmaceutical company or anything like that, you can't put cold water immersion into a pill.
No.
I'm sure someone would if they could, but really you're going to spend a lot of money on large-scale clinical trials, and what are they going to get out of it? They're going to get out an amazing natural modality that people can use,
free,
which is going to get them off medication, get them out of illness, and get them into wellness.
Yeah.
Not trying to be cynical, but there's not a lot of money in that space for that sort of motivation. So,
and that's probably the reason why it hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit reliant on that sort of army of citizens who are all reporting these amazing benefits. And like Mickey touched on, which is a super relevant and good point about the autoimmune and the immune benefits of it, that you hear anecdotal stories of people absolutely crippled by autoimmune disease who pretty much through cold water immersion alone have really changed their lives and turned around their whole health status and gotten off pharmaceutical medications and all sorts of things. So
isn't it funny that we were talking about before that old sort of wives' tale of, don't go out in the cold, you're going to get sick.
Catch a death of cold.
Yeah, but really it's kind of the opposite. If you can build up that hormetic stress, it's going to increase your immune system and you're going to be more. It's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, and challenge yourself.
And talking about it being sort of unknown, but go down to the beach at 5 o'clock in the morning and look at all the oldies, all the old folk swimming down at Madam's Pool down here or something like that, or in the ocean. They all meet, they all get together.
The polar bears.
And they immerse themselves in cold water. And so they obviously are aware of something that majority of us aren't.
Well, it feels good, right?
And
I
guess
at the worst,
older people are suffering probably more inflammation conditions, so that therefore helps ease those sort of issues. But they're all over it. The oldies follow suit.
And we always knew those polar bears live a long time. It's always been a thing that I've sort of known that they're known to have good longevity.
Yeah, right.
So obviously something in that, but. I guess the last thing we haven't covered probably is just for people who live in like a hot part of the world, or if you don't really have access to like a cold tank or a lake or the ocean or anything like that, your best bet is fill your bathtub up with a couple of bags of ice.
Yep.
Jump in there.
Yep.
Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. There are some really good hacks as well for building your own cold water immersion tanks. It's like you can buy one, but they're many, many thousands of dollars. But there's stories of people converting chest freezers into them. So filling up a chest freezer, putting an ozone filter into them to purify the water, and then hooking up a thermostat to maintain a certain temperature. And then obviously you just make sure it's switched off before you jump in. You can have your own cold water immersion tank.
Wow.
So I've got a friend who's a tradesman who's done one, and he did it very inexpensively, like less than $1,000 Australian dollars. And that was for a brand new chest freezer, modified it, put an ozone filter into it.
Wow.
So if you want to get really hot, super high tech, and you want to start really controlling your temperatures and really starting to set some goals, then you can do it reasonably inexpensively and a bit more scientifically than just doing the bathtub method.
Yeah.
So there's many ways out there. You shower, you can do a cold bath full of ice, you can go to the ocean or go to a creek or a lake or
get in the river.
But you can also do it more scientific and make your own tank. And then if you've got money to burn, you can go and buy one of those $10,000, $20,000 cold water immersion tanks, but you can do it cheaper.
Yeah,
if you want to.
And that's what we're all about.
Yeah, getting benefits.
Health practices that are free.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the best way to do it is nature, whether it's the ocean or a lake or a stream or just going for a walk in the cold. That's got to be good, doesn't it? Because that's how we've always done it.
Yeah, cool.
And on that note, it's probably a good way to finish, as Ancestral Man would have.
That's it.
Yeah. Do as Ancestral Man did.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and do some cold water immersion this afternoon.
Yeah. It's a bit
You like-
wet and cold out there. I'm gonna.
We're going to smash
well.
out a session, a workout.
Yeah. Nice.
Good stuff.
Enjoy.
Oh, good chat,
All right,
fellas.
great
That's
Yeah,
work.
really
good to catch
interesting.
up with you
Another
again,
one?
boys.
Yeah.
We still haven't had that frothy session.
No.
Eh?
Yeah, we've been threatening it for a long time. We need to pencil that in, I think.
Yeah.
Do it.
We just got to
Definitely.
get all our ducks in a row and
Nice night. A nice fire.
Yep.
Couple of beverages and have a bit of a chat.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
Mick.
stuff.
Well done, man. Thanks, guys.
Good on you.
You
Good,
guys.
good speaking to you.
You
See you
too,
lads.
boys.
See you next
See you,
time.
lads.
Catch up.